World Health Organization declared it a global pandemic with about 20 cases or 20 deaths, let's say, that they claimed were caused by the swine flu virus, which they said, was coming ultimately from here or there. They declared a global pandemic, and they changed their definition of pandemic at that point so that if you read it carefully, widespread death, no, we don't have to have that anymore. People keeling over everyone, no. So they declared the threat. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control in the U.S., the World Health Organization, they're the two big megaphone public health agencies that stir up all the fear and plant all the articles in the press and so on and so forth. So now we come to the summer of 2009 in the United States. The CDC is claiming that there are thousands of cases in the U.S. All right. Now, Sharyl Attkisson, who at the time was a star investigative reporter for CBS News in New York, she discovers a very strange fact. The CDC has secretly stopped counting the number of swine flu cases in America. Now, their mandate, the reason they exist, at least originally, was to do that, to count cases and report. Every week they have a morbidity and mortality report that they publicly issue about whatever diseases they're on to. And they've secretly stopped counting cases in the U.S. while continuing to blare forward that there are thousands of cases of swine flu in the U.S. So naturally, she says to herself, so I wonder why they stopped counting. And so she begins to dig deep and she finds out why. And it's because the overwhelming number of tissue samples from patients, swine flu patients, that are routinely sent out to labs for testing and analysis, this is ongoing all the time, are coming back with no sign of swine flu or any other kind of flu. And of course, they have to hide this fact. They have to conceal it, and they have to pretend that it's not happening. But she knows. So right. She writes an article about it. And naturally, it has to go through all kinds of stuff at CBS. The lawyers have to come in, and her bosses, and everybody has to look at it. And her boss tells her that it's a hell of a story. Never saw a story like this before about swine flu, and they run with it on the website, and it's published. Okay, so now the next step would be to put it on television, which is the real deal as far as the public is concerned, to put it on the nightly CBS News, to put it on all the affiliate CBS television news broadcasts. But now something happens at CBS. Now all of a sudden the kibosh is put on. We are not going to put this story on television. We're not going to do this. And there's going to be no follow-up.
And in fact, the CDC makes money off of their vaccine patents, and they're in business with the pharmaceutical industry. I think they make about $4 billion a year, according to Kennedy. So they have a serious conflict of interest. Serious.
Yeah.
Serious.
Say that.
Because they can't get the swine flu vaccine adopted and mandated unless there's a swine flu. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
So I'll add one more little tidbit here, the capper on this whole story. About 3 weeks to a month after CBS shuts down the whole deal on swine flu, I find an article at WebMD stating that the CDC, you see that at this point now, the official word is, well, the epidemic's starting to tail off and whatever, and it's now time to reflect a little bit and say, what was the effect of it all? So in this WebMD article, the CDC estimates that there were, get this, in the U.S. alone, 22 million cases of swine flu. 22 million cases of swine flu.
So one that you've talked a lot about is the absence of, proper water and sewer systems throughout many parts of the world and the conditions of low immune system that it makes. So I remember when you were covering AIDS, you went into that a lot. Another is chemical warfare. I mean, you've pointed out if you're going to do biowarfare, viruses are hard to control. It's much easier to use chemical. And especially when you can combine it with EMF, and cellular systems. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So chemical warfare, I mean, in the largest sense, let's say corporations have bought up all the farmland, the good farmland, so the people can't grow their own food, so they're hungry, they're starving. The corporation also, some spin-off, has industry factories there producing whatever, and so all the locals are working for the corporation there, and pollution is running out like rivers all over the place. Chemical warfare. I mean, this is let's say, the broadest definition of chemical warfare, but it's real because it keeps the population controlled. It kills off people. New people are brought in. They have to work there, otherwise they make nothing whatsoever. And they are sick, debilitated, they die, new ones come in. I mean, it is chemical warfare in the broadest sense. And then on top of that, the bosses, the dictator of the country, the corporations, they need a cover story. They need a cover story to explain why these people are dying.
Right.
Say, well, what can we do? Let's see, Ebola. You press a lever and suddenly everybody springs into action. Suddenly the stories start appearing. Bleeding, hemorrhagic fever, people falling down with blood everywhere and frightening. It's going to overtake the world and this and that and the other thing. And the main reason for floating that cover story was to cover up the real chemical warfare that was taking place. Okay, so that's one level.
Right.
But the other level is, hey, we don't know about germs. They're just too unpredictable, and they could work on some people, others nothing. We just don't know. And plus, if it does work, I mean, maybe we could get infected. But then some wise old psychopath says, let's do a chemical, and we'll say it's a virus. And this will work because we know about chemicals, how long it's toxic, how many people it's going to kill pretty much, how long it lasts, and then when it disperses, and then we can say it's all over. Yeah, this is good. And nobody's going to look for it. It's undetectable in that sense because we're going to promote the idea of a virus. So let's spread this chemical wherever we want to, small town, big city, doesn't matter. And then we'll come in with the story that it's suddenly an epidemic. CDC sends their virus hunters, and that's a whole other story. They have these guys on tap. They send in with blinders because these are all true believers. Whenever the doctors and researchers, whenever they get sent out by the CDC, they're going to find a virus.